Hello and welcome to the Green 19 podcast. I'm Dominique Yates. I'm joined by Ryan Wood and Tom Silverstein. After the Packers lose 24-14 to NFC North rival Detroit Lions, the Packers fall to 6-3 on the season, 0-2 in the division, and there's a lot to run through after this game that we watched on this Sunday, and we can talk about the offense, plus with Jordan Love, the drop passes, overall how the defense played, and much more. So let's just jump into usually how we like to do the podcast on Sundays, just general takeaways and overview. So I'll start with you, Ryan. Obviously, there's going to be so many little nuggets we'll run throughout the pod, but just general takeaways on just this game on Sunday at Lambeau Field.
The reason the Packers lost this game had nothing to do with not having enough talent to win. It's not a talent deficiency. Their roster goes toe-to-toe with any team in the NFL. And we've talked about this before this season. The reality is, coming into this game, they put themselves in a 6-2 record. They put themselves in a chance to win today and take first place in a loaded NFC North without playing their best. And at some point, winning ugly is important, but it was going to sneak up on them. And everything a team can't do to win a game, the Packers did today. Drop passes, bad snaps. Elton Jenkins obviously at center, and Jordan Love having the groin injury, being in shotgun all game in the rain. That was a lot of pressure on him. Penalties, and then another horrible interception from Jordan Love. Go down the line. Everything on the checklist of what not to do to win, they hit. They checked every one of those boxes. You can't do that against a team this good. The Detroit Lions, I think, are the best team in the NFC. Whether it's at Lambeau Field, Ford Field, it doesn't matter. You cannot get away with the issues that they're not new. They've been season long at this point, all of them. They can't get away with those things against a team like this.
Yeah, just for you, Tom, same question. Just what were your general takeaways from the game on Sunday?
Yeah, they kind of been living on the edge, and the Lions just knocked them off it. And, I agree with pretty much everything Ryan said. You didn't mention the drops. Those were huge. I mean, that's a totally different game if Chris Brooks catches that ball, at the 10-yard line, and Tucker Kraft catches that first down, at third and whatever at the 32-yard line. So, but it was a combination of everything. It was a bad time to play your worst game, but if it's not, if it doesn't send a wake-up call to them, then their season's over anyways, because they just, again, and everybody, it was said over and over again, details, small things. Yeah, they've been letting that stuff slide, and then finally it just caught up to them.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating sometimes. I'll admit, too, when we talk social media, I usually don't pay attention to comments, but I laugh sometimes when people feel we're being, overly critical when we've talked about some of these mistakes and things that have happened. But every now and again, you have to look down the road, and you look at a game like this. Sometimes you feel like, if you keep having all these penalties, pre-snap penalties, it's like, okay, every now and again there's little mistakes here and there, but so many things they did throughout the season, they were just able to survive it because of the talent, you could say, or lack thereof from some of the teams they played. But when you're looking at a team like the Lions, where even without an Aiden Hutchinson or a Williams at wide receiver, there's just not many holes on this team, and a lot of those mistakes came back to bite them. And I think something that even stood out to me, one of the best offensive series that the Packers had was the first one, 14-play drive, but only got a field goal out of it. And, again, that was kind of the story. Then it was punts. It was interceptions. Just so much from the offense, Ryan, that they just didn't connect and click.
Finishing drives. Yeah. That's another issue, right? And they just seem like they're a little bit off on offense. The Chris Brooks drop, he should have caught that, but the ball was a little bit behind him. Dontavian Wicks wide open in the end zone, should have caught it. The ball was a little bit behind him. Talent is the most important thing in the NFL, but it's not the only important thing, because talent only means so much if you don't play clean. If you play this kind of sloppy in every phase, every element that you can play sloppy, there's not enough talent on a roster, on any roster, to overcome those things against a really good opponent like the Detroit Lions. Jordan Love said it again today, and he said it multiple times this season. They haven't played their best game yet. We've seen, it's a testament, really, that they were 6-2, that they had a chance to put themselves first place in the division without playing their best game yet. We've seen last year, down the stretch, the final 2 months, how good this team can be, especially this offense, when they put everything together and play clean, play to their talent. I think the talent on this roster is even better than a year ago. It's sloppy. We haven't seen them put that together. And to me, the big difference between, I think these are the two most talented teams in the NFC, the Lions and Packers. The big difference, the reason why I picked the Lions to not only win the NFC North, but win the NFC going into the season, was that the Lions just are that much more seasoned than the Packers. They have just that experience edge. And I think you really saw that today on the same field. One team, Jared Goff wasn't explosive, but he was efficient. They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't have stupid penalties other than Brian Branch, who self-destructed. But the Packers couldn't take advantage of that when it happened. They missed the field goal on that drive. The experience edge is kind of the tiebreaker between these two teams. And until the Packers catch up in the seasoning department, that's going to continue to be the difference between two very talented rosters.
Didn't Jared Goff start the game 11 of 11?
Yep.
And the Packers had, 10 penalties? The Lions had 5.
7 penalties before the Lions had their first one. 7.
Which is crazy to me. And not only that, it's fascinating, and our friend Pete Doherty made the comment, if you're just watching the game, you wouldn't know which team typically plays indoors and which team plays outdoors. It was just so many things that, Tom, I can't really wrap my head around. And I guess in particular with, you can say, some of the drops and the penalties, I guess, what do you make of some of it? Is it just a combination of the throw plus the catch, like not executing? I guess, what do you see when you've seen some of these drops? Because they're third in the league in drop passes right now?
Yeah, maybe even second. I don't know. But, what you saw was a quarterback not playing at 100% in the rain, and his receivers have got to help him. The ball's not going to always be clean. I think some of those catches, your quarterback's hurt. You're playing against a team that's very aggressive. The DBs are going to be all over you. And, balls are hitting you. If they hit you in the hands, you got to catch them.
Yeah.
There's maybe one or two that where you go, okay, it hit him in the hands, but maybe not. But, the one Brooks had, he's got to have that. Dontavian Wicks in the end zone, he's got to have that. Tucker Kraft on the sideline, he's got to have that. And then Jordan Love, his contract with the team is don't turn the ball over. And definitely don't turn it over where, it's in your own end zone when you could just throw the ball into the ground. That's all you got to do is throw the ball into the ground. I don't know what the disconnect is with him in terms of trying to do things like that. There's a difference between being aggressive, taking chances down the field, but don't take chances 5 yards away from you, or, throwing into triple coverage. That interception was the difference in the game. I would argue that even they could have overcome all of that. Maybe the interception, probably not, but they could have overcome a lot if they had not committed the penalties, crucial penalties, and had not had the drops. Then the Love thing, it would have been close, but that was the thing that turned it, and so there was no way they were going to win with the penalties and the drops and the interception. Maybe 2 out of the 3, but that's it.
Yeah. It was a snowball effect. Like you said, they get the pick 6 at 17-3 at half. Jahmyr Gibbs gets a score the third quarter. It's 24-3 like that. It was just a snowball effect where things didn't go well. And just as we kind of wrap up with the defense or the offense before we start talking about just how the defense played, You were in the presser with Jordan Love. What did he say about the pick six?
Yeah, he saw Josh Jacobs after engaging in a block, release, and break open and right in front of him. He did not see Kirby Joseph. And Jordan Love also said he did not put the ball where he wanted to. Pretty clear watching that play that there was not enough loft on that ball. He kind of threw a line drive where it was reachable for Kirby Joseph. But the bigger issue is not seeing Kirby Joseph. He was kind of crouched behind Zach Tom, and he made a great play on it. But that's what Kirby Joseph does. Xavier McKinney's no longer in the sole lead in the NFL in interceptions this season. Now Kirby Joseph pulled alongside him with 6. It was on the scouting report. It was in the game plan. They knew Kirby Joseph's a ball hawk. If he's around, you got to spot him. You got to have eyes on him. And if he's around, you got to be careful. He didn't see Kirby Joseph of all players, and he got burned by that. But an interesting thought experiment that I've been kind of mulling in my head. I'm curious what you guys think. To me, there were 4 primary sloppy issues in this game. There was the pick, there were the penalties, there were the drops, and there were the bad snaps. And I've kind of been trying to prioritize them in terms of most concerning to least concerning. To me, the least concerning is the bad snaps because Elton Jenkins is a left guard. And, again, a lot of pressure on him in this game with Jordan Love and a shotgun rain. They didn't have their starting center. I thought for the most part he did a pretty decent job. There were 3 bad snaps all game, like in the rain and shotgun. It's not. He held up for the most part. It's just those bad snaps came at the wrong time. That's least concerning. But from there, I would personally put in terms of big picture, Jordan Love's interceptions. Now he's at 10 in the season. For 2 months last year, he showed that he can take care of the football. We've been saying for weeks now, when is it going to hurt them? And it ultimately turned out to be week 9. It's oversimplification to ever deduce any type of loss to one play. But if there's ever a game you want to do it, that was the play. It goes from 10-3 to 17-3 in a blink. The Lions get the ball to start third quarter. The game was effectively over in the rain at that point. I mean, that they were not overcoming that. I think the interceptions are most concerning. And then to me, I go back and forth between the drops, which has been a season-long issue, and the penalties that have been a season-long issue. But that all, and I'm curious how you rank them too, but that all to me goes back to it doesn't matter how much talent you have. If you play like that, you're not going to beat the best teams in the league, which means you're not going to get to where your talent should allow you to get to.
Yeah. What about you, I guess, as far as interceptions, penalties, the snaps, just I guess how do you kind of rank from biggest concerns to not so much?
Well, the interceptions are always the biggest concern, but I think the drops are sort of a reflection of maybe an overestimation of their wide receiver group because, Dontavian Wicks has taken a huge step backward. He's a non-factor, 0. Dobbs is there, getting lots of short yardage stuff, but nothing. Christian Watson, I don't know if he's open. A lot of times I look and he's not, and some of those balls they threw deep to him, you would expect a lot of separation, but it's not really there. Jaden Reed's the one guy they can count on every single time, and now I'm starting to wonder if maybe they need help there. I don't know. The group is not coming through the way, they thought it would after last year. And I think maybe there's some overestimation there.
What they need is a reliable number 2 week in and week out. Jaden Reed has really put himself in that spot.
He's one.
He's the number 1.
Yeah.
You can count on him to have a big game most weeks. But who's that guy behind him? I just don't know. They had 8 different targets catch a pass again today. They do that every week, and that's a nice thing. They have a lot of depth in terms of pass catching talent. But they don't have that reliable, consistent number 2 guy behind Jaden Reed. And that's something that any offense needs week in and week out. A guy that you can go to when the number 1's taken away.
I don't know. It's possible that they need to cut back a little bit on how much they're playing certain guys. Like make Dobbs the number 2, make Reed number 1, Watson's number 3, and Wicks sit him for a little while. There's just something not right there. And, maybe it's time to give Malik Heath a little bit of a look too. I don't know. There's some of the times where I'm looking at Love and the Lions are blitzing and I don't see anyone open. So if they're blitzing and they're playing man coverage or whatever and nobody's open, I don't know. That isn't Jordan Love's fault. I'm sure there's lots of times he's missed guys, but teams are going to keep pressuring until one of those guys beats them deep or continually beats them deep, and nobody's doing that. Other than Jaden Reed.
You start to wonder if maybe Romeo Doubs is onto something earlier. Not saying he handled it the right way, but yeah, I mean he was the guy in the playoffs last year, right? He's made big plays in big games.
Mm-hmm.
He's got number 2 stamped on his chest. I said earlier in the season, Dontavian Wicks is too talented to not be patient with him, right? Mm-hmm. And he is. He's really talented. He's open a lot. He's the one guy that he really does get open a lot. You look at all the receivers, I think his open rate sure seems like it's the highest. But at some point you got to catch the ball or you're not going to play. And I think early in the season it's okay to have patience, but it's getting to the point where if you're not going to catch the ball, you're not going to be on the field. At some point there has to be accountability there.
Yeah.
The other point, and this is more specific, this is less general, big topic, but we mentioned not finishing that opening drive, and I don't think that should get – that was killer in this game because it was very clear the game plan was Josh Jacobs. The game plan was run the ball, and Josh Jacobs had a whale of a game. I mean, he on a bad ankle, he ran – he was explosive. I think this might have been the most explosive consistently that Josh Jacobs had actually been all season. The 37-yarder early in the game, not having your carries mount up and then break one. He ran the ball with his hair on fire. That was the game plan. But Matt LaFleur referenced it after the game. You fall behind. And in this game, he finished 13 carries, 95 yards on 13 carries. And there's been times this season that I've been critical of him not getting enough carries, but he couldn't get more carries. They wanted him to have more carries in this game. That was the game plan. But they fell behind early, and if they just finish that opening drive, they set that tone from the start, they're able to stick with their game plan a lot better. But that not finishing that drive, not finishing drives early on, really, really took them out of what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, get him the ball other ways then. Get him the ball in the passing game. Now, one thing that maybe he just can't do, like Aaron Jones could do, was split out wide and run routes, and occasionally they would really take advantage of that. You don't see Jacobs really. Once in a while, he's lined up out there, but maybe they got to find a way to get the ball in his hands in other ways too. Especially when teams are blitzing. And I mean, it was a perfect example was the Lions had Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield, and Isaiah McDuffie reads Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield, comes flying in on a blitz, and Jahmyr Gibbs releases, and Goff just tosses the ball to him. It's like that's exactly what they expected. And, maybe they got to do stuff like that with Jacobs, is figure out ways where, he stays in, but he's not really in. He's getting ready to release. And then if someone doesn't blitz, then he does something else.
Sure, with 13 carries for 95 yards. I mean, he was going. And as far as like some momentum shifts, but we said where the Packers didn't capitalize, not only that opening drive, but the Brian Branch ejection. Mm-hmm. I mean, the crowd is into it. They're rowdy.
They finally had a penalty, right?
Yeah, right. After the targeting on Bo Melton. So it's kind of like, oh, wow, you're in a good spot. I think it was still, 7-3? It's like, okay, you got some momentum. Go score. It gets loud in Lambeau Field. Because overall, again, the defense was still doing some good things, but you get another penalty. You're behind the chains. A missed field goal from Brandon McManus. So it's one of those things that stands out to me because, again, as good as the Lions are, like the Packers were right there the whole game. I don't know if I guess this is a question for both of you guys. Is there some, like, optimism with the Packers group in terms of like you're right there, or is it a concern that it's still week 9 and you're still making a lot of the same mistakes from week 1? I'll go with you, Ryan. Start.
I think, I try to stay away from the social media comments too. But we're all human, right? I think that a loss like this, there's a lot of doomsday prognostications in a fan base. And I understand. I mean, this was a tough one. I get that. I'm not here to say they're going to figure this out because you can't. That's not a certainty. There's nothing guaranteed there. They might be just this all season. You cannot count on them figuring it out. The bye week comes at a good time. They got a lot to work on. Mm-hmm. But to me, the talent is still the talent, and that's important. They have every bit of talent that they need to make a deep playoff run. The fact that they got to this point in the season, which is a good place. I mean, last year they were what? They were 3-6, and now they're 6-3. They're in a much better spot than a year ago. If they can put it together as they did last year, and that is a capital IF, that is a big if they can, then absolutely sure, because they have the talent. I think it is far too early to write this team off because there's nobody in a talent sense in the league that they can't go up to toe-to-toe. That's a great place to start. They just have they have to put it together. And if they do that, yeah, I think that they can be awfully dangerous, but I don't know if they will or not.
I guess, what about for you, Tom?
I never felt like they were in it. I just never felt like they were in it. And I felt all along that it was Detroit's game. As soon as they didn't score a touchdown and then Detroit came down and scored, to me it was like, okay, Detroit just, you had this long drive, you didn't score a touchdown. They answered with a long drive, came back and said, hey, we're going to be back. We'll be factors in this game. You can't. David Montgomery's going to run all over you guys. That's what they did. They established David Montgomery, and from that point on, I just never felt the game was even in danger of being close. Now it was close from a score standpoint, and the defense gave up 17 points, which is a lot fewer than Detroit is scoring per game. It's a winnable number. If they don't score that touchdown and it's 10-3 at halftime, it's a little bit of a different game. Mm-hmm. But I still, I just felt like Detroit was a step ahead of Green Bay the whole time. And I mean, I think Green Bay is talented, but I think Detroit and San Francisco is still probably, to me, maybe the most talented team when they're healthy. Now with Brandon Ayuk gone or out and Christian McCaffrey down, I think, they're a completely different team, but they're going to get McCaffrey back and they're going to be a factor. And, the Packers are going to have a tough game there. I don't know. If I'm Gutekunst, I'm taking a really long look at the roster and wondering, what can I do to add to bring me another step closer to Detroit? Because I still think they're a little bit behind there, at least from a performance standpoint. I think the Packers should have a better defense than Detroit does. But for some reason, Detroit was part of the mistakes, part of the penalties, part of the reason I think the Packers had trouble is because Detroit comes in and plays you aggressively, and they force some of those mistakes, some of those get-offs. The Zach Toms, it's because they're anticipating guys beating them. And I think Detroit is all over the receivers, and I think that plays with their heads a little bit. Can I get open? And I know I'm going to have a guy on me. I think it's a little bit of a style of play there, too.
The question when it comes to whether or not a team should add like this, especially a team like this at the trade deadline, to me is always where do they add, right? You don't just add. Where do they add? And I think that there is something to be said for this young roster bringing in a little bit more veteran experience somewhere. Because to me, the always being a step ahead, to me that is having more seasoning in a big game like this. It is having more scars. It is having more experience. That's the edge, right? And so it's a really young team, and this is a young man's game. Youth is everything in the NFL, but they're so young. Bringing in veteran experience, I think there's something to be said about that.
Well, I guess, you kind of sum it up, like what's been the strength of the defense. You talked about the secondary. Xavier McKinney, he's one of the veteran-type guys. The running backs have been solid because Josh Jacobs is leading the way, so you definitely have something there. Let's segue and let's start talking more about the defense. Spoon, you kind of alluded to it, but the Packers only gave up 17 points. And for a Lions team that was scoring 40-plus in 3 out of 4 games, especially considering the fact no Evan Williams, no Jair Alexander, you had to move some pieces around. I guess overall, what did you see from the Packers defensively?
Not enough pass rush as usual.
Yeah.
They blitzed a fair amount in the second half. I thought they got a little bit more after Goff. I thought some of their scheme was really good. The Gibbs play for a touchdown was just I'm pretty sure was just a my scheme beat your scheme kind of a play. And he's running wide open. I think, and I'm going to reiterate what, I wrote last week, was that I still think corner is a vulnerable position because you don't know when Jair Alexander's going to be on the field. As good as he is, he's going to miss games, and he's just always going to miss games. And I don't know how many games he's going to be in. I think, having Evan Williams helps. Bullard's in a little bit of a slump, and I think having Evan Williams would have helped. But, I don't know if you can trust their other corners right now. I don't know. I just think if they could get some sort of veteran guy to help,
I don't have a huge gripe with the defense today. That's a really talented Lions offense.
Oh.
Yeah,
holding them to 17 points.
Yeah,
you can nitpick, and they got the first touchdown. They got the matchup they wanted. Amon-Ra St. Brown against Keyshawn Nixon in the end zone. And I get even with the 17 points, the Lions did drain the clock at the end. They could have added more if they wanted to. But it's the second fewest points the Lions scored all season. It's the fewest points they scored since scoring 16 week 2 in a loss. You hold them to 17 points. You can't really ask realistically for much more against that offense than what they got. And that's without Jair Alexander and Evan Williams. It's without enough pass rush. They didn't have a takeaway today. They've been living on the takeaway. Right. I think in some ways that's actually assuring, right? That they don't have to rely on the takeaway. We saw it against the Texans too. Didn't have a takeaway against C.J. Stroud, but you know what? They shut him down. They don't. This is a defense that can take the football away, and that's huge. You absolutely need to have a defense that can do that, but they don't have to do that to have a good performance. I think that's something to build on. There's a lot good there for the Packers defense. The first 2 drives, the opening drive for both teams get to the 5-yard line. Matt LaFleur kicks a field goal from the 5. Dan Campbell does what Dan Campbell does, and he's like, I don't even know what a field goal is. Let's shoot, we're going for it. In hindsight, it's easy to say, well, okay, that's 2 decisions. One went well for the Lions, one went bad for the Packers. Did you have any issue with you take the ball, you receive, you decide, you want to set the tone, you're at the 5-yard line, not going for it there?
It's a good point.
Very good point.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to think about that. You're right. You're at home.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
If you don't get it, you're at the 5.
You're there at the 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Backed up. And it's setting a tone.
And you're not, you got to be thinking you need touchdowns in this game. Field goals are not going to win the game.
That's what I thought.
Now, I thought he should have kicked the field goal when he went for it. Was it in the third quarter?
Oh, that Josh Jacobs.
Yeah,
4th and 1.
Yeah, No, the one where he kicked. 4th and 1. Right. He gets a field goal there. They wind up a little bit closer. But in the end, that really didn't matter. But I agree with you. If you're going to face a team that's going to win by touchdown, is trying to beat you by touchdowns, you better match it. And yeah, I think you're right. I think that probably would have been a good time to go for it.
The other part of that, and maybe the biggest part of that, was what was the game plan for the offense tonight? It was to run the ball. To do that, you need a lead. Field goal's not going to be against that offense.
Right.
The field goal's not guaranteeing a lead. And so you're opening the door to get out of your game plan. Jordan Love said that his groin was zero issue tonight. He said that even after the game, he wasn't feeling it. To me, it sounded like a competitor that wasn't willing to make excuses.
Yeah,
and you applaud him for
that's
that.
all.
He was limping after
Absolutely.
at halftime.
Absolutely. Malik Willis, early third quarter, was throwing passes on the sideline. I was thinking, okay, is he going to come in? And I asked Matt LaFleur about it after the game. He said, no, he's just trying to stay warm. You don't know. Last week he comes in early third quarter. You don't know. So there was never a consideration for Jordan Love to come out of this game, even though I don't buy that the groin was a non-issue. But the Packers knew it. One, they kept him in shotgun all game. And two, they opened with Josh Jacobs. That was the game plan. Getting a touchdown there, it sets everything up in a way that 3 points just doesn't.
Yeah. And I still don't, and I'd like to ask him tomorrow, except I'm not going to be here, is
I'll take notes.
Yeah, all right.
why does he keep taking the ball? Why not kick off? Your defense is playing better than your offense. Why are you continually accepting the ball and then not getting the ball at the start of the third quarter?
I think there's something, I don't know the numbers for sure, but I think there's something analytically to be said for if you take the first possession, you have a higher chance at more possessions, and getting more possessions is really, that's what you want, right?
Right.
With that said, it is unconventional. The conventional wisdom's always been to defer.
Well, conventional wisdom would be, hey, we're pretty good on that first drive. Let's keep taking the ball. Conventional wisdom now is we can't freaking score a touchdown when we, the 3 times we've taken it in a row, all we've gotten is a field goal.
When you think about it, that's a decision, that's a change that Matt LaFleur made midway through last year when the offense was sluggish.
Yeah.
And he
took
started
it in
taking
Detroit
the ball.
last year, right?
He started taking the ball. I think it was even earlier. It might have been against the Chargers. Don't quote me on that. But he started taking the ball when the offense was sluggish as a way to kickstart that group, and it did. It worked. But he's still doing that. Again, if the analytics tell you that you have a much better chance of getting more possessions than your opponent by taking the ball first, I have a hard time arguing against that because you do want more possessions. But I hear you too. Set the tone with your defense, and that's what made the pick so killer, because you knew that the Lions were getting the ball to start the third quarter.
Right.
And it's also why the Packers had to try to get some points there.
Right.
In a 10th, because they're getting the ball to start the third quarter.
I thought that was the right decision too. Plus, you want Love to get the ball back in his hands right away and try to do it. I want to look back at that too. I think he missed Christian Watson on that play too. Now, I don't know if he had turned his body, because he was going to his left, whether he had his shoulders turned to make that throw, but I want to look back at that because out of the corner of my eye, I saw Christian Watson, doing this, and he was several yards behind. But I don't know, maybe Jordan Love couldn't get the ball there.
I know we haven't talked much about the defense, and to me, there's just so much to talk about the offense to me that we're back on Jordan Love, but 10 picks. And to me, it's an epidemic at this point. It's a plague. They are rampant. You've seen picks off bad decisions,
and it's with only 6 games.
6.5. Yeah, you've seen picks off bad decisions. You've seen picks off inaccurate throws. You've seen picks deep. Tonight, what have I been saying for weeks? I think that the picks will stop when Jordan Love tries to start hitting checkdowns again. Well, you saw a pick on a checkdown. Every single way you can see a pick, you're seeing a pick. And to Jordan Love's credit, he was very down on himself about the interceptions after this game. He was taking accountability because he's making a lot of big plays too. And he's a guy, you can just tell. He just signed the contract extension. He's got a big arm. He can make big plays. He always wants to make a play. It's a fine line between trying to make a play, giving your guys around you a chance to make a play, and it's 2nd and 1. You have a timeout. There's 40 seconds left. Chuck the ball. Live for the 3rd and 1. Get to the next play. You got a bad groin. You're flushed from the pocket. Only bad things can really happen in that situation. Yeah. It's an issue. Like it's a really significant. There hasn't been a game this season that he's not thrown an interception. That's got to change, or they're not getting to where they want to go.
I think they should ban him from watching Patrick Mahomes. I think really that is the type of guy he wants to be, and he has said that. Patrick Mahomes has 9 interceptions.
Yep.
You know, I mean, not that much different, and he might probably have a 10th tomorrow, and they'll be tied again.
Yeah.
But Patrick Mahomes can finish games, can he tilts the field, and Jordan Love can't tilt the field by himself. Not yet. Maybe someday he will be, but he needs to not turn the ball over and run that offense.
You just said it. Someday. What's the difference between Patrick Mahomes and Jordan Love? Now, talent, because there's nobody in the league.
There's one Mahomes.
Yeah, there's one Mahomes. He's unique.
Yeah.
It's not a knock on Jordan Love. Jordan Love's a very talented young guy. Mm-hmm. Talent's a difference. But the bigger difference to me, by far, is that you have one quarterback that's been in all the big situations. He knows what to do in every moment. He understands the situation. He understands where the game is at. And he understands when you take a chance and when you not. And you trust a guy like that because he's been through it all. Jordan Love hasn't. And that seasoning is going to be important to him, I think, as he continues to develop. But until the interceptions get knocked off, there's going to be concern about his early career development because it's a massive problem at this point. You cannot overstate how significant it is when every game you're going in and you're throwing the ball to the other team every week.
I think sometimes you would just want to tell him, like, you can have a successful career with check down throws.
I mean, it was a check down tonight.
Yeah.
You can have a successful career throwing the ball away. Yeah. Sometimes an incompletion is your best friend. There was a moment tonight, I think it was in the second half, where he threw the ball out the back of the end zone. And I'm thinking, that's a good play. Mm-hmm. You know, go back to the very first drive of last season in Chicago. He had a moment where it was a second down, I think. They're in the red zone. He threw the ball out the back of the end zone. And I thought, that's it. You know, sometimes that's the best play that you can make as a quarterback is no play at all.
Yeah, just eat it.
Get to the next snap without throwing a pick six. That's where Patrick Mahomes knows that, right? He's had that grounded into him through the experience of his career. Jordan Love, that's a lesson he's got to learn.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of fascinating. The former quarterback who was in the broadcast booth for this game, Tom Brady. What was his career? Check down to Welker, to this guy, to Gronk. It's like you can have good things happen, just keep moving forward. But it was just so much in this game, especially offensively, too. Just the snowball effect, especially the penalties. You just were not able to get into a rhythm at all. But really, even on both sides of the ball, I think about defensively, like the St. Brown touchdown on 4th down. It was a little bit 4th and long. Then they got an offsides penalty. You get 5 yards to score. So there was just so much in there that could have been done, and it just didn't happen. As we move and just talk, special teams, well, I guess, Brandon McManus missed one. And I don't have much else to add. But even special teams, the opening kick return for Keyshawn Nixon, it was an unnecessary roughness on the sideline.
Still don't know what happened.
I don't
either. That's what I was wondering. That was going to be a question. I mean, just what did you make from what was going on out there with even special teams?
Well, they had another bad holding penalty on a punt return. Penalties, they're big offenders. They're good for at least 2 penalties a game. At least. Yeah. The Packers are, let me just figure it out. I think they're tied for second for most penalties in the league. And, it's special teams plays a pretty big role in that. That's a lot of the penalties. Mm-hmm. Not the majority by any means, but, false start penalties are just ridiculous.
First and 15.
Yeah, the 2 that really killed them the Sean Ryan one, it was 3rd and 3, and then it turned into 3rd and 8. And then I think Jacobs turned it into 1st and 15. And I don't think they got, I think they were, what happened on that one? Yeah, then Dobbs had the drop. They did end up getting a first down, but all of those things kind of, they make your offense play longer. They put them in worse positions. I just think, LaFleur was saying they were going to double count out there, but they've done that for years. Aaron Rodgers lived on the double count, and so I don't know why guys were having problems with it.
Here's the other thing it does. You have a quarterback that already is predisposed to want the big play, and now he's facing it 1st and 15. And the check down is even less tenable at 1st and 15. You get in your mind, okay, now we need a big play because we're behind down in distance, we're behind schedule.
Yeah, and you're leaving him open to be blitzed too.
Yep. Yeah, that does not help a guy that you're trying to get to make the simple play. It's hard to throw the football away 1st and 15. I think it feeds into that.
I guess as we near the end, what are some things, I'll go ahead and start with you, Ryan, that I guess you're wanting to see, you could say, not only coming off the bye week before they kind of head into Chicago and some of those other things. What are some things you're just curious about? What do you want to see happen with the team?
Well, I will tell you, one person that I'm not concerned about at this point at all is Brandon McManus. Yeah, he was wide left on a 46-yard field goal, but the reality is that 46-yard field goal in these elements in Lambeau Field was kicking a lot more like a 56-yarder. I mean, that was a tough kick. He came back, he made his other 2, including a 30-yarder after the miss. He's missed 1 kick in 3 games, and we've seen this team have a lot of missed kicks. I'm not worried about Brandon McManus. I don't think there's a kicking issue here. He's been off on the right foot. Big picture, I can't get my mind off the interceptions. It's something we didn't see last year. I don't know what the disconnect is, but I don't see this offense reaching its full potential, which means I don't see this season going where they believe it can go if they don't clean that up. The penalties, the drops, absolutely. You got to help out your quarterback. You got to help out your team as a whole. But the interceptions, this is a good time bye week for Jordan Love. He's got to really sit down, be critical, and figure out how to fix that problem.
Yeah. What about for you? Some final thoughts on just what you want to see, before they head to Chicago and what the next couple of weeks look like?
A couple things they need. Well, I'll be curious to see if they do. I don't care what they do. They cut everybody on the roster. But, what do you do with Quay Walker? I mean, he is extremely talented guy, but, you look up and, he's getting blocked into oblivion. He's not quite reactive. He got juked by, was it Montgomery? I think it was Montgomery just did a jump cut on him. And, to what point do you leave him on the field all the time, and maybe, the gains are bigger when you have Edgerrin Cooper on the field, and start rotating guys. I don't know. Like, I thought Eric Wilson wasn't very good today, and so are they? Does Hafley know his personnel well enough still? That's another thing that I think he's got to spend during the bye week. And then I think they need to do something to keep improving their team, because Detroit's going to try to do something to improve. They're going to trade for Zadarius Smith or someone like that, and that'll add. I don't know if the Packers have enough up-and-coming guys now to have a significant improvement. I don't know. Maybe they do.
What's the one position you think that they need to add, if you can pick one? I got an answer in my head. I'm curious what you'd say.
Well, I think, if they could add an edge rusher, I think that would be, if they could have gotten Hassan Reddick before he redid his deal, that would have been a big thing. I'm noticing that Preston Smith's playing less and less, and I wonder, if they're thinking about dealing him or what. But they're getting nothing from Lucas Van Ness on pass rush. I mean, almost nothing. So, yeah, I think if that were available, and I'm not sure who it is, they're not trading for Zadarius Smith, I guarantee you that.
Nope.
Been there, done that. I'm not sure, who's left, Calais Campbell or someone like that. I don't think that's going to happen. Those guys don't come cheap,
That was my answer.
Edge rusher.
Defensive line pass rusher in general, but yeah, most likely edge rusher. One, bring in some seasoned veteran experience there. I think that this is a roster that could use that. But two, they've got to take the pressure off of Sean Gary, Kenny Clark, who they're just not getting home. I don't know why this defensive line is not transitioning to the 4-3 as well as they had expected, but you go back to the offseason, I wrote about it in the postseason grades last year. As soon as your reporting, Spoon, where you reported that they're moving to 4-3, and the very first initial thought was, oh, this is a Packers defensive line that was lights out as a 3-4 last year. They were built for a 3-4. How is that going to transition? And the answer at the mid-season point is not well.
Yeah.
It has not transitioned well to the 4-3.
Well, they were drafted as 3-4 guys, Gutekunst drafted him because he thought they could play. He thought Gary could stand up and play wide and be a pass rusher, and he's not. He's not Nick Bosa or Chase Young when he was a really good player or guys like that. He's just not that type of player. I agree. I mean, I think they're playing with 3-4 guys, and now they're going to have to kind of figure out how to transition a little bit.
When you think about it, this defense is much, 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 much better than the past several seasons. It is. But the reason for that is play style. It's not scheme. It's not because they moved this. You would think, okay, they had a major schematic change. They've moved to a 4-3. That's the reason. No, the 4-3 to me has nothing to do with it. Their play style. Jeff Hafley has these guys' play style, making plays, in position to make plays, and they're playing fast, aggressive. They're flying to the football. They're taking the football away.
They're not playing these combination zones where everyone's confused.
It's not scheme, So that, to me, if you can bring in someone on the defensive line, especially, that's a better scheme fit for that 4-3. I think that's where you got to look.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to think about with this team, and honestly, I guess it's rhetorical. I do wonder, when will they play complementary football? It's just, will there be a situation where the defense doesn't have a short field to go out there because of a turnover or something like that, or the offense just can sustain a drive? Can the special teams and no penalties? There's just so many things I'm curious about with this team. And I mean, you're going to have opportunities. Like, you're going to play Chicago twice. You get your chance with Minnesota and Detroit again, and you got the 49ers. You have games and opportunities out there to improve, and you still got 9 games left. And I mean, now it's like you're going to hit that home stretch. So I'm curious what's to come with this group. But at the end of the day, they are 6-3, 0-2 in the division, and now they get a bye week and get ready for that, like I said, that home stretch. As we wrap it up, do you guys have any plans for your bye week?
I do, but it's a secret.
Okay.
Secret. Oh, I need a source close to the situation. Same as always. My folks are coming to town late in the week. That'll be nice. So just family time, more time with the kids.
That'd be good.
Yeah, that's what the bye week always is for me. So kind of try to – and mid-season bye weeks are the best. You can't do much better than a week 10.
I mean, I'm so ready for the bye that, I think like a week 6 isn't bad either. I don't want a December one again. No. That was just too freaking long to wait. But this is good timing.
I mean, it's been a long season starting in Brazil, right?
Heck yeah.
We feel it. We know that the Packers feel it if we feel it. And it's been a long time since Brazil, too. It's been a bit of a march.
I know.
They've gone from Brazil to L.A., everywhere in between. Nashville. Like, there's been a lot of miles put on this team.
Florida, yeah.
And, not that anyone cares, but a lot of miles put on us, too. So, rest is good. But, the Packers can't just rest. They've got real issues. I think this is going to be a very important self-scout for them. They got real issues that they've got to figure out just so that they can maximize the potential that they have and actually realize that, because it is a lot of potential. This is a really talented team. It just hasn't been a really good team yet, but they have the potential to be.
Yeah. So that's all we got. Enjoy the bye week. Me too. I'm going to go get some sleep. It's my first NFL season, so at the halfway point, I'm going to go sleep for a little bit. I came here during training camp, during preseason, and it's been all gas, no breaks. So, yeah, I'm going to sleep for a couple of days, too, and then I guess I'll do some digging to see what Spoon is up to. No, I'm just kidding.
Right? Yeah.
Good
just kidding. Let's get out of here, guys. It's been a long day.
Yeah, I put my disguise on. So
That's right. Wear your ball cap and
Where
your
in the
hoodie.
world is Tom Silverstein?
We will hunt you down. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone, we thank you all so much for checking out the Green 19 podcast. For Ryan Wood, Tom Silverstein, I'm Dominique Yates.